Okay, so we are on the chapter Visit to the Sinthi Brahmo Samaj. We're about two-thirds of the way through the chapter. We're right in the middle of a date, so I really can't give you a whole lot more than that. But they've just been there. They've been at a meeting of the Brahmo Samaj. There's been a lot of singing and a lot of people having some beautiful spiritual experiences. And so it says after a time, the master came back and said to Vijay, "What devotion to God your mother-in-law has." About the worldly life, she said to me, "Oh, you needn't tell me about the world. No sooner does one wave disappear than another one rises up." "But," I said, "what is that to you? You have knowledge." She replied, "Where is my knowledge? I haven't yet been able to go beyond Vidyamaya and Avidyamaya. It won't help me much to go beyond just the illusion of ignorance. I shall have to transcend the illusion of knowledge as well. Only then I shall have true knowledge of God. I'm quoting your own words." While they were talking, Benny Powell, their host, entered the room. Benny to Vijay, "Sir, please get up. It is already late. Please begin the worship." Vijay, "What further need is there of worship? I find that according to your arrangement, the rice pudding is served first, and then the soup and other dishes." Meaning that they've had all this beautiful devotional singing, and there's this wonderful atmosphere developed. Several people have gone into ecstatic states. And so Vijay's saying, "What do you mean? What are we going to? Why is it? We've served dessert first. What more can we do? What further need is there of worship? I find that according to your arrangement, the rice pudding is served first, and then the soup and other dishes." Master with a smile, "The devotees provide offerings according to their temperaments. The sattvic devotee offers the deity simple rice pudding, and the rajasic devotee has 50 different dishes. The tamasic devotee slaughters goats and other animals." Right? So God's a meat eater. So you see, this we do everything according to our disposition, and they break into those three categories: rajasic, tamasic, and sattvic. And even in our devotion, Ramakrishna says, the tamasic devotee is the one that grabs God and says, "Give me my birthright. You said that you would save me. You said that you would teach me. You said that you would bring me home. Now you must do it." Right? And so that's the tamasic devotee. And then the rajasic devotee, has lots of beads around his neck, and they're interspaced with gold. And he has, first a deer skin to put down, and then a special piece of silk to put over it, and then his asana to sit on top of that, and then his decorative silk to go on top of that. And he sits down to do his practice, and you'll always see him with a big mala of rosary beads around his neck, right? So that's the rajasic. And then the sattvic is the guy you never see him doing his practice. He climbs into his bed, puts up the mosquito net, and sits there in private and does his practice quietly. That's that's how Jesus taught everybody to pray. If, instead of going out in the public square and shouting your prayers and beating your breast in tears before God, he says, go into your your inner sanctum, into your closet, and there, with just you and God, pour out your heart to the Lord, right? And why is that? Of course, the reason for that is that we don't want to get our ego mixed up in our practice. We don't want people to get to know us as great meditators and, oh my gosh, have you seen how much practice he does? And oh my gosh, how he can quote Sanskrit. Have you heard him go on for days? Right? All of those things, if we're not careful, we get the pride of learning around those things. And so our practice is private. It's between us and our beloved, right? Vijay began to hesitate about going to the platform to conduct the worship. He said to the master, "I shall conduct the worship from the platform only if you give me your blessing." Master, "It will be all right if you don't feel any egotism, if you don't have any vain feeling of I'm giving a lecture, listen to me." That what begets egotism, knowledge or ignorance? It is only the humble man who attains knowledge. In a low place, rainwater collects. It runs down from a mound, right? And so ego, we all know the ego is the idea of ourself that we've constructed in our mind. And that idea has attributes, right? But our real self is not in the mind. Our real self is in the shrine of the heart. But we live as a thought of ourself because the whole world is in our mind. And that's where the world of change, the world of Shakti occurs, is in mind. And so all of this universe is within mind. And so when we get up and preach, or when we get up and teach, or when we do anything, the ego is always collecting beads, because the ego is eternally insecure. Why? Because it doesn't exist, and it knows it doesn't exist. And so it's always having to cobble together attributes to convince it, both itself and you, incidentally, that it exists, right? And so you don't, Ramakrishna is just telling him, getting up and speaking publicly as a teacher in front of people, you can do that, but it's only effective if you do it without ego, right? If you do it in a humble way. That's very important, because only the humble can have the real knowledge. Why? Because egotism blocks knowledge, blocks our wisdom, blocks the divine from us. And so he doesn't want us to do things that the ego can collect as attributes for itself to grow itself, right? A man achieves neither knowledge nor liberation as long as he has egotism. Oh, see, that's a big deal. That's why that's why our practice is primarily a surrender, as we've talked about extensively, a surrender to God, a surrender to the divine, so that we sit there in solitude and quietness before the beloved, and open everything, open all the cupboards, all the junk drawers, all of the storage boxes, the attic, the basement, open up everything about yourself to the vision of God when you're sitting in your practice, and just imagine, or allow yourself to see and to feel, whether it's imagination or whether it's happening. Don't concern yourself with that. Just go in and open up all the doors, all the drawers, everything up, surrender it all to Mother. And any time that you see anything going on in your practice you don't want, like a noisy mind or a messed up thought or something, don't resist it. Don't get upset about it. Don't try and control it. Simply, again, open that door and turn to Mother, out of the corner of your eye, and say, "Did you see that?" Right? Just show it to Mother, because Mother is the one that will fix it. Right? And so any of that stuff that you see going on, just open it up and quickly show it to the Mother and leave it alone. You are not the doer. So don't let your mind convince you that you are changing things and you're making things happen and you're doing things. That will protect you from egotism, right? You sit there and surrender and open to Mother with the faith and the knowledge that just her presence, that Satchitananda, is enough to comb the soul, as it were, to get all the tangles out of the soul, right? The thought of God, the presence of God, the mantra, those are all things that remove obstacles, that remove the tangles of ignorance inside. So he says, a man achieves neither knowledge nor liberation, right? So no real knowledge. You may be able to, you'll be able to accumulate lots of head knowledge, lots of philosophical knowledge. That's not the problem. But you won't have that insight, of the knowing. The information won't be coming direct to you. It'll be coming from your mind. It won't be coming from the source, up from the heart, if ego is involved. If you see yourself as, I am the teacher, listen to me, kind of ideal. That's what he's warning him about here. So as long as we have egotism, we're blocked from knowledge or liberation. He comes back again and again to the world. The calf, oh boy, this is a tough little parable right here. The calf bellows, humba, humba, that is, I. That is why it suffers such agony, right? And so we are the doers. We see ourselves as doers, and we take responsibility for all that we do, right? Ignoring our first Vedantic instruction that you are not the doer. And that's what creates karma, right? And in that karma, we suffer. because we corner ourselves, into very difficult places by making silly choices and not practicing discipline. And so we get our lives in a tangle and we suffer from it. And so he's saying, a calf, a young cow, when it bellows, of course, in Bengal, it says, we would just say moo. but apparently Bengali cows go humba humba, which apparently means or sounds like I. And that is why it suffers such agony. Then the butcher slaughters it, and the shoemaker makes shoes from its hide. Besides, its hide is used for a drum, which then is beaten mercilessly. Still no end to its misery. At long last, the carding machine is made from its entrails, and while carding, the cotton machine makes the sound tuhu, tuhu, that is, thou, thou. Right? So he's come full circle. Finally, after all that suffering, after paying that full price of having an ego and nurturing it and suffering for it, right? We finally come to the place after all of that when we see what the world really is. And we understand that all of our desires have caused equal amounts of suffering, right? And we look at how much effort has gone into our desires and how we have nothing to show for them because they all disappear, right? Once we've come to that place through observation by being observant and watching things objectively, then we come to the place where we can let go, right? And we understand that our nature is love, and so service brings us joy, right? Peace brings us joy. Harmony brings us joy. The thought of God brings us joy. Selfless acts of love bring us joy. And so we start turning thou, 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 right? Our life stops becoming solely about ourselves, and we drag other people into our awareness, right? The calf says, as it were, "O God, you are the doer, and I am nothing. You are the operator, and I am the machine. You are everything." Right? So that's where our practice brings us to. It thins that egoism out so that we can enjoy the divine presence, which is the purified form of our old self, in a very odd way of describing God. But yes, we bump into the reality. As the ego thins, we start to realize through experience that our mind is beginning to align with the divine mind. And that's when the ideas of God separate from ourself becomes a little bit more difficult for us to believe. We're like, no, we're in an equal wavelength here. We're in harmony. The mind is purifying. It's not being infected constantly by ego thinking, right? And so we slowly become aware of our oneness with the divine then. And that is the knowledge that a person with egotism cannot touch, right? Cannot reach. It's that knowing our nature, not in a memory recall kind of way, but in a heartfelt, this is what I am. 3 words, master, teacher, and father, prick me like thorns. I am the Son of God, his eternal child. How can I be a father? God alone is the master, and I am his instrument. He is the operator, and I am the machine. Ramakrishna makes this statement over and over and over again in the gospel, because this is the antidote to delusion, to understand. And that this is where faith really grows too, right? Because at first you really have to take it on faith that I'm not the doer. Right? You can't imagine, how's that possible? I'm doing everything, right? Because you're watching the body do something and your body identified. So thereby you think you're doing it. You haven't yet found through your observation the separation between body and spirit, mind and spirit, right?
So how do you get to that? I mean, how do you practically do it?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. There's a couple of ways, though, that I find very helpful. One is observation, right? If you watch very closely, for me, it's like washing dishes. If you start paying attention to how you wash dishes, you realize that most of that work is done without your attention at all. You know, that if you were just sitting there singing a song and looking out the window, you could wash dishes, right? And then you look at what the body's up to. You see that the heart is beating, the lungs are breathing, the immune system is delivering antibodies to all the places, your wounds are healing, and you're not the doer of any of that. And you're just going to watch all of that happen. And so you're the subset of things that you notice that you actually do begins to become clear to you that it's insignificant. That basically, if you look at the opportunities that have to be created in order for you to step into them to do what you think you're doing, most of it's already been done, right? You're just taking the opportunity and putting a detail into it. And that includes everything, And so it's through careful observation that we learn it, through watching. And then I like to do experiments like the washing dishes one. I like to sit and get into a mood or a disposition where I'm watching the dishes being washed by my body, where I'm just observing. And I start observing exactly what is it that I have to think about? Is there anything I have to be present for with it? And you find that really, ultimately, no, there's not a whole lot there.
Can you reach it by just doing the japa
Yeah.
at the time that
Yes.
you?
Oh, mother says japa gives you everything. So yes, japam will also do it because japam separates you. Japam absorbs you into the self. That's when you really get the notion of this divine center is through japam and the divine mood that comes over us in meditation from that. Most definitely. Yeah. Japam will make you aware of the self. And that's really all that itself teaches the rest of these things. Yeah. It's just, but it's good at this point, not to be convinced. You don't have to be convinced that you're not the doer. That's very hard to be convinced of. But you have to make space for it, and you have to observe and know it by faith, right? And practice accordingly. Because if you get into your practice and start running it with your ego, trying to calm your mind and trying to figure this out and that out, then it clouds the real work, and things don't happen. But through that surrender, that om, following that name, eventually you do fall in love with God. You do fall in love with the divine. And when you chant the name, love manifests inside. That warm, that warm, cuddly feeling can arise. And it's important when you're doing the mantra. I went through a period where I was trying to follow, where does the mantra come from? Because after you've been doing it for a few years, it doesn't even have to be a few years. After you've been doing it for a while, it comes of its own accord. And it seems to happen spontaneously inside. And so when it's like that, normally at the beginning you have to kind of make it happen, making it going all the way around. But later on, it happens automatically, and the mantra will keep going in your mind even when you're doing other things of its own accord. And when I got to the point where the mantra was happening automatically in my mind, I used to try and disconnect from it and kind of in my mind walk around it. Like I would see the mantra happening in the mind, and I would try and walk around it and extend my feelings and observation of my mind to see, where is that coming from? Where does the name emanate from in me? And that's what ultimately led to the Shrine of the Heart. That's what helped me find what St. John of the Cross was talking about, the cave of the heart he talks about. I like the Shrine of the Heart, Ramakrishna sometimes mentions, but that here, and that the idea again kind of developed from the practice that this was Shiva, the experience of sitting in the heart and listening to the mantra is an experience of unchanging. That's the unchanging self, the established self, that is one with the divine, that is in harmony, that is realized, right? And that the unrealized self, the little s, is the thought of ourself that we live with in the world of change, right? We begin to see that is an idea, and this is the real. This is a thought. This is the real. This is a change. This is the unchanging, right? This is always unsteady. There's always hunger, always thirst here, but here there's contentment, right? And so just practice, just sitting in that space and observing and surrendering, observing, surrendering, observing, surrendering, all the while chanting the name. I think these are the jewels and gems that Ramakrishna says in that song that lay scattered about the doors at the door to the heart.
So basically, whatever Eckhart Tolle is doing, calling the presence.
Yes, yes, definitely. And that's where the real knowledge comes. When you start learning from your practice directly, uh, that's where some of the very interesting things become apparent to us. Stuff that we may have read, but it really didn't touch us because we reading it didn't do anything. But when you're in the state, when you're in your meditation, you start observing something and you'll start observing new things. And a lot of these wonderful truths that the master tells us, it seems that that's when you learn them firsthand, is in that silence, in that the deeper parts of meditation, right? Where it gets a little bit quiet.
I have a question, if I may.
Please.
Um, so when you mentioned that the mantra is established, when the mantra is established and it kind of runs by itself, right, without any effort,
Mm-hmm.
is there a danger that when it happens, it's so automatic that you have like a layer of thoughts running parallel to it?
Yes. Yeah. No, that happens. That's pretty much all it is for a long time. uh, but that's the practice, is you keep putting your attention back on the mantra. And the best way to do that is simply to do it and not even confront or describe or even admit the fact that the mind had gone elsewhere. Like, just let that be a non-issue. Just bring it back and keep going. Bring it back and keep going. Bring it back and keep going. Don't let it have any significance. Don't let it make you frustrated. Don't let it make you say some narrative like, oh, I'm a lousy meditator, or, oh God, this is so difficult. Oh, I wish my mind would shut up. Right? If you engage like that, what you've done is stepped into the ego. You've basically stepped into the boxer's ring at
So
that
if
point.
you keep your mind on the mantra at all times,
Mm.
and yet you do other things, how do you split your attention then? Like, whatever you're doing dishes, of course we can do dishes automatically, but let's see, two different questions here. Like when you're driving your car first time, right? You're learning to drive, or you're learning to do dishes, like you're 5-year-old and your mother teaches you how to do dishes. I
Uh-huh.
saw my great nephew, I saw how he was doing dishes first time. It
Yeah.
just was absolutely amazing. He was like fully immersed in this process. It was so interesting and exciting for him. Uh, so there is no space for anything else. Your attention is fully into what you're doing. Whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is you're doing, you're not at the automatic function yet. There are some functions we've learned, like, doing dishes, whatever we learned in life. But there are some automatic functions, like you mentioned, your digestion, your heartbeat, these things we have no effect. Well, we might have an effect if we are yogis, right?
All right. Yeah, if you learn how to do it, yes.
Right, but they basically, the body comes with this package. It's running by itself.
Mm. Yeah.
So, yeah, go on if you
Well,
have any comments about it.
yeah. Well, Ramakrishna gives that wonderful example of that woman working in the mill. She's got a baby hanging on her arm. She's talking to a customer. She's giving change, and she's the wheel, the crushing wheel that's making the flattened rice is turning over there, and she's reaching into the hole to pull out the rice that's been flattened, and then to quickly put another handful of rice in that's going to get pounded without getting her hand pounded. And he says, see how she's able to manage all of those things at one time. He says, you put 1/16 of your mind on God, and I'll take care of the rest. Right. And so the mind is capable of doing many things simultaneously. We do it all the time, with, in a natural way. And so keep a portion of your mind set aside for the japa. Right. And then no matter what you're doing, Like when I'm sitting and talking with somebody, if it's a spiritual conversation, especially if they've asked me a question, mantra is going in my mind. When someone's describing or sitting and telling me about a problem that they've got and that they want something done with, I tie my mind to the mantra so that my mind isn't sitting there twirling trying to come up with an answer. You know, that the mind isn't sitting there trying to figure out what I want to say to them, because that's ego help, and ego help is useless. Right. And so by keeping the mind on the mantra while they're talking, I'm listening very carefully to what they're saying, but I'm hearing the mantra first. The mantra is my environment within which I'm listening to their description of what they're going through. Right. And then as I'm hearing it, I'm passing it up. I'm like, Mother, did you hear that? Oh, Mother, can you imagine she's going through that? You know, I just keep the mother present. And then when it comes time for me to say something, instead of saying something right away, you know, I sit there and quiet for a minute. I bring myself back to center with Mother, and my question to Mother at that point is like, what do you want to tell them? And then whatever comes to mind comes out. That's my practice at this point. And so I think that's a way of doing it. You know, I know when I was in the office that I would do my mantra. I would come up with ways of like every hour on the hour doing a little prayer. I had two outboxes. You know, one was to offer it to God, my work that I'd done, and then I would put it out in the other basket like that, and then continue on. And when like the whole idea of it becoming automatic, remember, because I used to be a contractor, and so I would walk from client to client all around San Francisco. And when I was walking from one meeting to another, I would do jump with my my necklace, you know, my mala.
Mm.
And that's when I got in that practice of every time my right foot hit the ground, that the mantra would start. And that's what taught me that the mantra can become automatic, right? That it becomes something that anytime my right foot hits the ground, that's a memory marker. And I would, you know, to this day, if I go hiking, uh, after a few steps, you know, up the trail, I'll just notice that my mantra is trying to start in the background, you know, from the right foot hitting. So with practice, mantra takes less and less effort on your part, right, and becomes an established reality inside your thinking, and then it's always there. It's going along with the other thoughts. The only time I ever had trouble with it was when I was programming, because programming is like a 5-year-old learning to do dishes. Your whole mind just gets taken over by it. And so that takes a bit more effort. At that point, you have to come up with like stopping every 15 minutes to pull your mind out, reestablish yourself, and then go back in again like that.
What's the relationship between mantra going at all times and just a silent mind?
Well, I think the name of God is the silence you're looking for. It's inside the name that we find the silence, inside the presence. And so when we start getting absorbed into the mantra, when it's calling in the manifestation of presence, then we have a working experience of that. So the silence that we're looking for is actually the silence that's in the middle of the mantra when it begins to absorb the mind with presence.
So if the mantra is the presence, then practically we coming to mantra, not mantra is coming to us, right?
I don't think anyone's coming anywhere. I think it's
No, in a sense,
it's a
like
dis,
not
it's a
like
dis,
mantra is appearing to us, we kind of appearing to mantra.
yes. Well, it's an intersection of what is real. So you're just naming what is. No one's actually coming or going anywhere. The mantra is bringing your awareness to what is actual, what is real in the moment. The only unchanging thing is the name of God in your mantra. That is the divine reality. And so we hold that at our center, and we try and absorb all of our tentacles of senses by enticing them into the love of the presence. right? And so the love of God, the grace of God, the mercy of God, the beauty of the divine feeling, the wonderful sense of love, those are the things that then call in all of those little sheep that are wandering madly around the field, but yeah, so just the name contains the goal, right? We're wanting the name to reveal the reality by trying to say the mantra perfectly with a perfect understanding of the presence. Does that help at all, Anna? Did I hit anywhere in the realm you're asking about?
Yeah, I'm exactly thinking about moments like during the day, it just comes, right? And first I was like, oh, here it comes. But at some point, I feel like I'm in mantra, and mantra is in me, and it's, as your Swami said, there's no really barriers here and differences, and like, and my sense is like the mantra is there, and I'm in mantra, and I'm in presence. It's just me coming to it. It's always there. It's like me kind of surfacing, going down and up, practically hearing it or not hearing it. But it's not like it's appearing and disappearing. In a sense, I'm appearing and disappearing in mantra
Yes.
and in presence.
Yes.
So once it kind of flipped, I have this amazing like peace being in mantra. So whenever I say it or not say it, I know it's there. So
Yes.
it's not my what I want to say. It's not my practice anymore. It's not the practice. It's kind of
Yes.
dissolved. The practice dissolved.
Yes. 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 Wonderful. Exactly right. Exactly right. Practice dissolves. Doership dissolves. Absorption begins to happen. Yeah. Yes. Because God, the mantra is God. It's not separate from the divine. Say the mantra and the presence is, right? And you just accept that and grow in that acceptance, and then you will grow in the experience. Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Yes, that's exactly right. All right. If somebody addresses me as guru, this is Ramakrishna speaking, I say to him, go away, you fool. How can I be a teacher? There is no teacher except Satchitananda. There is no refuge except him. He alone is the ferryman to take one across the ocean of the world. Right? So he's showing us exactly, this is how he stayed so pure. Right? He refused to take on that title of guru now, which is absurd because he is the guru, right? He's the guru for all of us. But see, from that I perspective, a sage will never take an attribute and attach it to his I. He would never say, I'm a guru, right? He doesn't want to attach anything to I because that's how ego increases. And so Ramakrishna denies guruship. No, I, that which is referenced when the body mind says I, is not a guru, and how can I ever be a guru? Right? The best that he can be is an instrument, and that instrument is guru. The guru uses that instrument, and so he keeps his identity separate from the what the operations that the operator is doing in the body mind, right? So he tries to keep himself pure by not claiming the doerships, not claiming the titles, not claiming the descriptions, right? So he says, oops, right? There is no refuge except him. He alone is the ferryman to take us across the ocean of the world, right? So he sits there and goes through. It's like, when I lecture on Sundays, I always, before I go up to the shrine, before I go up to the podium, my last words are to myself, to Mother, are, everyone in this room is here to see you, Mother. Nobody came to see me. Nobody wants to know what I know. They want to know what you know. They want to be with you. Please talk to them. Please give them some help. Give them some need. I apologize at the beginning for any pride that I may have, or any mistake of claiming ownership of any of this may happen. Please don't let my faults be the reason that you can't give somebody what they need through this lesson, right? And we learn that from Thakur right here. This is what he's doing. He's reminding himself, right? I am not the doer. I am the observer. God is doing all of this. And so if somebody calls me guru, I say to him, go away, you fool. Don't you refer to me as such. I am nothing. I'm the dust of the devotee's feet, he would say. So always reminding himself, right? And I'm not very good at it. I'm still practicing it. But that's when you hear me say goofy things about myself, like, oh, that's just the goofball, or that's just, this, that, or the other. Those are little ways, that self-deprecation are ways of me trying with different levels of success, but trying not to let these things attach to my ego, so that I don't become an arrogant idiot of a Swami, that I can become like Thakur. That's all. To become like this. There is no refuge except God. He alone is the ferryman to take one across the ocean of this world. To Vijay, it is very difficult to act as an acharya, a teacher. It harms the acharya himself. Finding a number of men doing him reverence, he sits, you put 4 seers of milk in once.
He sits erect.
He sits erect? Is that what it says? Okay, because mine's missing that word. He sits erect.
Crossing his legs and says proudly, I'm preaching.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so amazing. I'm missing a whole sentence.
So you just go from here. He sits.
He sits erect, crossing his legs, and says proudly, I am preaching. I always say to the Divine Mother, O Mother, you are the operator and I am the machine. I do as thou makest me do.
The maybe switch the page, like sometimes it happens. So PDFs switch, they skip a page or something.
This is not good. All right, can I use this book for a moment? My PDF has failed me. All right. He crossing his legs, he says proudly, I am preaching, hear ye all. This is a very bad attitude. He gets a little prestige and it ends there. People will say at most, Vijay Babu has spoken very well. He knows a great deal. Never cherish the attitude, I am preaching. I always say to the Divine Mother, O Mother, you are the operator. I am the machine. I do as thou makest me do. I speak as thou makest me speak, right? Because that's the thing. If you get up there and you just do a great job, what happens? The hearts aren't touched. At best, people are very entertained and think, wow, that guy's a great speaker. And then you identify with that and you become proud. Oh, I'm a great speaker. I can get 100 people to come to the center, right? And so you start following that kind of thinking. And what happens? Well, what happens is everything is lost. Mother can't use you because you're converting everything that she's doing into egoism. And that's blocking your own vision of her. And so you may be a great speaker. You may be able to entertain the masses for an hour with no trouble at all. But for what? Did you become a devotee so that you could become a great speaker? Did you give teaching so that you could be lauded as a great teacher? No, this is a heartbreaking thing because this is so easy. This happens so easily, and we suffer. All of us suffer as seekers for it. You know, when our luminaries lose their way, you know, and get taken onto these paths, and then have a fall, because ego always falls. There's no stability in ego, and if you build your spiritual life around ego, you know, the sense of accomplishment, a sense of doership, a sense of grabbing, taking, a sense of acquiring something, then the power of your practice is diminished, right? Your practice is not about doing or giving; it's about being, and it doesn't have a goal. It doesn't have an objective in the future. It is you enjoying God here and now, in this moment, trying to do it with a full heart and with an empty mind, right? And so that's why it's important that we see our practice as surrender. It's not an accumulation. It's a surrendering, a letting go, so that which is within us, right? That beautiful Satchitananda, so that which is within us can finally manifest when that noise, that loud fart called the ego, silence is enough for us to hear ourselves, right? To hear what we are. Vijay humbly, please give me your permission, only then will I sit on the platform. The master with a smile, what shall I say? Pray to God yourself, he belongs to all. Even as Uncle Moon is the uncle of all children, you have nothing to fear if you are sincere. Right? There it is. You have nothing to fear if you're sincere. Right? So just want God, just want love. It's easy to do. Right? All of us are sincere by nature. We just have to push away the ego so that it's the proper I being sincere. Right? You have nothing to fear if you are sincere. On being further requested by Vijay, the master said, yes, go, follow the rules. Everything is all right if one has sincere love for God. Vijay sat on the platform and conducted the worship according to the rules of the Brahmo Samaj. At the time for prayer, he repeatedly called on the mother, touching the hearts of all. After the worship, their host entertained the master and the devotees with a sumptuous feast. Soon they were ready to return home. Sri Ramakrishna became engaged in conversation with Vijay, no one else but M being present. Master, you prayed to God, addressing him as mother. That is very good. People say that the mother's attachment to the child is stronger than the father's. A son can force his demand on his mother, but not on his father. Once cartloads of money were coming from the estate of Trilokya's mother. They were guarded by many red-turbaned stalwarts armed with big sticks. Trilokya, who had been waiting on the road with his men, pounced upon the money and took it away by force. A son has a very strong claim on his mother's wealth. People say that a mother cannot very well sue her son in a court of law. Vijay, if Brahman is our mother, then has it any form or is it formless? Master, that which is Brahman is also Kali, the mother, the primal energy. When it is inactive, it is called Brahman. Again, when it's creating, preserving, and destroying, it's called Shakti. Still water is an illustration of Brahman. Right? The same water moving in waves may be compared to Shakti or Kali. What is the meaning of Kali? She who communes with Mahakala. The Absolute is Kali. She is formless, and again she has forms. If you believe in the formless aspect, then meditate on Kali as that. If you meditate on any aspect of her with firm conviction, she will let you know her true nature. Then you will realize that not merely does God exist, but he will come near you. and he will talk to you as I am talking to you. Have faith, and you will achieve everything. Have faith, and you will achieve everything. Don't be impatient. Be sincere and be earnest. Remember this too. If you believe that God is formless, then stick to that belief with firm conviction. But don't be dogmatic. Never say emphatically about God that he can only be this and not that. You may say, I believe that God is formless, but he can be many things more. He alone knows what else he can do. I do not know. I do not understand. How can one man with his 1 ounce of intelligence know the real nature of God? Can you put 4 seers of milk in a 1 seer jar? If God, okay, now we're back to the other, right? If God, through his grace, ever reveals himself to his devotee and makes him understand, then he will know, but not otherwise. That which is Brahman is Shakti, and that again is the mother. He it is, says Ram Prasad, that I approach as mother. But must I give away the secret here in the marketplace? From the hints I have given, O mind, guess what that being is, right? That being is you. That being is you. The you of you. Let's put it that way. Brahm Prasad implies that he has known the truth of Brahman. He addresses Brahman as mother. In another song, Ram Prasad expresses the same idea thus: knowing the secret that Kali is one with the highest Brahman, I have discarded once for all both dharma and adharma. Right? So this knowledge that everything ultimately resolves, well, again, we're at that level of talking where it just doesn't make any sense to talk about it. But this notion, of course, everything, the changing, Shakti and Shiva, though they appear differently to us, right? They are one. And I think the reason that they appear differently to us is, one, we think we're separate, but also because, for instance, when Ramakrishna says fire and its power to burn are inseparable, right? You can't think of one without the other. And so why do we see them as two things if they're inseparable? Well, we can blame our senses, right? Because we see fire. That's the unchangeable fire, right? And then we feel the heat of the fire. So we get two feelings for a singularity. And so we talk about the heat of the fire as being separate from the fire. And then we talk about the fire as being separate from the heat of the fire. But they can't be separate. They can never be separated. So they are not two. But we experience them in a body as two. Right? And so this is the reason that we chant the name and withdraw from body-mind, come to gather ourselves into our true nature, so that we're not being blinded by the untruth of the senses, that there is a multiplicity, but that we are experiencing a singularity. It's the body that breaks it into 5 pieces, and then the mind that infers many other pieces, right? And many other stories and categorizations, right? To create an entire universe. So knowing the secret that Kali is one with the highest Brahman, I have discarded once for all both dharma and adharma, right? And so there comes a time where we realize that there cannot be both light and dark. We know that there's only one without a second, right? Adharma are the things that take us away from God, right? That we think take us away from God. But quite often, the result of being taken away from God is the desire to return. So in actuality, what seemed like adharma was also dharma, right? That the suffering, the adharma, the going into the darkness, the multiplicity, is ultimately what makes you come back. and those things that mother punishes you with change your behaviors and move you in the right direction. So this universe, that's why I say, is Satchitananda. Satchitananda is a guiding principle. That's why all of us are going to make it home, right? Because the universe is carrying us there, little by little. If we're sincere and earnest and engage with it in that to that end and surrender to its teaching, right? Surrender to its promptings, then we come to the knowledge of God. If we keep holding on to the way we like things to be, keep holding on to our comforts and our own descriptions of this world, it takes longer and we suffer in the meantime, right? So adharma means unrighteous actions, actions forbidden by religion. Dharma means the pious actions prescribed by religion, as for instance, charity to the poor, feeding the Brahmins, and so on. Vijay, what remains if one renounces both dharma and adharma? Master, pure love of God, right? Just that, the pure love of God. I pray to the Divine Mother, O Mother, here, take your dharma, take your adharma, give me pure love for you. Take your virtue, take your vice, give me pure love for you. Take your knowledge and take your ignorance, and give me pure love for you. You see, I didn't ask even for knowledge or public recognition. When one renounces both dharma and adharma, there remains only pure love of God, love that is stainless, love that is motiveless, and that one feels only for the sake of love. All right, let's stop there for today.